Well, welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host, Ace, here on Running with the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, share with a friend. Thank you very much. And last night, the New Jersey Devils headed into Calgary. The return for Jacob Markstrom to Calgary on the second game of a Western Canada road trip. After beating the Vancouver Canucks in Vancouver the other night by a score of 6-0, the Devils looking to go 2-0 on the Western Canada road trip and improve their record to 3-0 in the last 3 games, which would have been a 3-game winning streak. But it was not in the cards. They lose an ugly one. They fall to the Flames by a score of 3-0, and this one really hurts, guys. This one really hurts. I'm not going to defend it. Sloppy game for the Devils. They were asleep early. It took them over 8 minutes to register a shot. Regardless of all of that, it was a scoreless tie after 2 periods. All they had to do was go out there and win a third period for Markey. Markey's coming back to Calgary. He was playing very well, coming off the shutout, and he was perfect through 55 minutes. And ultimately, the Devils just couldn't find a way to win that third period. Flames get one, get another second one, and they score on the empty net. 3-0 game, not truly indicative of how close the game really was. Like I said, it was scoreless for about 55 minutes or so. Devils fall, still have not had a 3-game winning streak in eternity. And this is a painful one, guys. It's hard to sugarcoat. I'm not a doomsdayer. I still believe this team will be good, but the consistency needs to start happening, and it needs to start happening soon. Yesterday or the day before, we find out that Curtis Lazar had a procedure done and that he is out indefinitely. And as I said in the post-game live after this game, that could be anything, in my opinion, from a 2 to 3 game absence for Lazar to a career-ending injury and everything in between. The Devils are purposely vague with injury announcements and things of that nature, and so we have no idea. If I'm being perfectly honest, I do believe that Lazar will be out for the season or very close to it. Hopefully he recovers and we see Lazar back in the lineup as soon as possible. But if I was a betting man, I would bet that he's probably, gone for the season, which is super unfortunate. And I'll touch back on that a little bit later. But like I said, Devils come out really flat, don't register a shot for over 8 minutes. Markstrom looked dialed in immediately. Coming off that shutout in Vancouver, he looked sharp. He was tracking pucks well. He was covering loose pucks. He just looked like he was in the zone. There's a play where Paul Cotter gets crunched by 2 guys, and it was kind of dangerous. Bastian comes in to try to be the hero, drops the mitts, and just gets absolutely pummeled. Bastian gets pummeled in the fight, and then for his efforts, he gets a 2, a 5, and a 10. So a 2-minute instigator penalty, a 5-minute major for fighting, a 10-minute misconduct. And the Devils end up shorthanded as a result of Bastian coming to the defense of Paul Cotter. And I like to see guys stand up for one another. I think the NHL, in an effort to crack down on fighting, are looking to hand out an extra 2-minute minor to the aggressor of the fight, which Bastian was in this case. But he was responding to a questionable hit by the Flames. But either way, I do believe the refs are looking to give an extra minor to try to discourage guys from starting fights. I mean, that's just my opinion. But we saw that happen with Brendan Dillon against the Wings when he took a questionable hit that could have been boarding. He responded by dropping the mitts, and they gave him a 2-minute roughing in addition to the 5-minute major. So ultimately the Devils were shorthanded, and I do think this is a tactic, in an effort to try to cut down on fighting. But it is what it is. And I want to see Curtis McDermott, a true tough guy. He played great in that Anaheim game. I'd like to see him on the 4th line. Sal and Dano on the MSG broadcast were talking about, I think this could have been different if McDermott was playing. And alluding to the fact that McDermott really, brings that tough element that the Devils could use in a game like tonight. And we've seen it on plenty of nights. And so I don't know why after the Ducks game McDermott was out. I'd like to see a lot more of him going forward. I'm not saying he has to play every single game, but I'd like to see him play more than he has been playing early on. Scoreless after the first. Second period, former Devil Sharon Govich hits a post. Jack misses 2 breakaways. Huge chances squandered there. Even if Jack buries one of those 2 breakaways, I believe the game plays out entirely differently, but it wasn't meant to be. He doesn't score on either breakaway. Mercer came in on a 2-on-1 with, I believe, Nico while shorthanded, and instead of just ripping it on net, he decided to try to force a pass, which I thought was a terrible choice. Squandered chance there for a good quality, scoring chance. Markstrom had a big glove save in the second. And then late in the second, the Devils had a nice possession. They were working it down low, passing it around, moving it really well, and never got a shot off. No, not a shot, and I don't even believe they got a shot attempt. I felt like it was a waste of a possession. We were really putting the pressure on Calgary in their own end, and we didn't generate a shot or even try one. Disappointing. After the second period, we find out Bastian's not coming back, and then he has a jaw injury. I mean, it's just, one thing after another. Third period, Devils come out. Couple chances, nothing crazy. You would have liked to see more urgency. I really thought that despite playing a bad game, Markstrom held us in there, and after 2, we were in a position to win the game. There was no reason why this game was not on the table for a win, and it was. The Devils just couldn't get it done, and then at 14:26 of the third period, Calgary just showing urgency for the last half of the game or so, just trying to throw pucks on net anyway from anywhere, and I would like to see the Devils do more of that. We've seen tons of goals against the Devils as a result of guys just throwing pucks towards the net and getting a lucky tip, a rebound, a deflection, something, off a skate, whatever it is, throw pucks at net and see what happens. And the Flames were doing it. The Devils really weren't. And Kevin Bahl, former New Jersey Devil defenseman, one of the main pieces in the trade that brought Markstrom to New Jersey, Kevin Bahl just throws one towards the net. Coleman gets a tip on it, and a former Devil to a former Devil, giving Calgary the 1-0 lead, and that ultimately is the game-winning goal. At 14:26, with 5 minutes and 34 seconds left in the third, they get that goal. And then 28 seconds later, Devils with a breakdown. Siegenthaler gets kind of frozen on a 2-on-1, and Huberdeau gives him the 2-0 lead at 14:54. Game completely over at that point, and a few minutes later at 16:45, Coleman gets the empty net for his second of the game, and the Devils lose a bad one. A game that was there for the taking, that I thought was really going to be a kind of gut check time for the Devils. Like, they're in the sloppy game on the road, the second game of the road trip, looking to remain perfect on the road trip with the chance to go into Edmonton to close out the third game of the road trip perfect. This game would have given us our first 3-game win streak in forever as well. They couldn't get it done, and it just really is just discouraging with that effort we saw in the third period. Despite all the things that happened beforehand, the game was there for the taking, and the Devils could not seize the opportunity. They just could not get anything done in the third period, and they lose a painful one, and they are now 1-5 in their last 6 games. I mean, listen, guys, I try to remain optimistic. I won't be a doomsdayer for a very long time. I'll be a doomsdayer when the time calls for it. And in the first couple days of November is certainly way, way, way too early to be a doomsdayer, but there's plenty of you out there, and you come out in packs after games like this in the post-game live. But for those of you that remain optimistic, I'm still optimistic. I believe this team is going to be good. And the fact is, they haven't really been dominated in a long time now. And it sucks to try to find like a silver lining in a statement like that. But the Devils did play well enough to win in Detroit. That road game that we lost, that was a painful loss, but they did play good enough to win. If they had better goaltending, I think they could have won that game. And the same can be said for the Islander game. That was a very closely contested game, and with maybe slightly better goaltending or a break here or there, that game was winnable as well. And so they've really been in all these games for quite a while now, and they haven't been embarrassed, which is a step in the right direction. Again, we're now only 14 games into the Sheldon Keefe administration, trying to figure out a bunch of other things now. The fourth line has now become a massive question mark. We headed into the season with the fourth line slated to be, the meat line of Paul Cotter, Curtis Lazar, Nathan Bastian. Obviously, as I predicted, I must say, Paul Cotter found his way off that line and now is kind of settled down on the third line for the time being. The fourth line really took a hit with Lazar's injury, and it took another hit tonight. I'm assuming Bastian's going to be out for a while, and so now we have basically Justin Dowling at center up from Utica, which I'd give him a few more games to see what he brings. I would like to ideally possibly find a center from somewhere, and whether that's also from Utica, we make a trade. I don't know what it is. I definitely give Dowling a few more games as a showcase, but I don't know that he's the answer going forward. And I do know that Curtis McDermott should be, maybe not an every game player, but he should play more games than not as part of that fourth line. So if we're looking at heading into Edmonton, I believe that Dowling is going to be center on the fourth line again. We will see McDermott back in the lineup, and that leaves a winger spot open. And, I'd like to see maybe Brian Hallinan or Nolan Foote. I mean, we have some depth, and so now we're really going to be tested once again, coming off of last season with a ton of injuries. This season, it's more injuries to depth guys and role players, more so than star players, which if you had to pick who you'd rather get hurt, obviously, it sucks for anyone to get hurt, but it's an easier pill to swallow, in my opinion, to try to patchwork or replace depth players versus star players, right? And we had star players out for a long time last year, including Dougie Hamilton, and then obviously Jack, Nico missed some time. It's like last year the injury bug ran through the whole team. Our season was cursed, it seemed. Yeah, the whole thing with McLeod, we were getting league worst goaltending, but whatever. That was last year. But now we have some injuries that we're going to have to weather the storm with, and I do think we're going to see Dowling at least for a couple more games. Hopefully McDermott, and that leaves a spot for someone else. Like I said, whether it's Hallinan, Foote, some combination of these guys. The fourth line is essentially starting from scratch now. I mean, like I said, the fourth line was starting the season supposed to be Cotter, Bastian, and Lazar, and now none of those guys are going to be on the fourth line. Cotter is now on the third line. Bastian is out, Lazar is out, and so they got to figure it out. The fourth line is basically being rebuilt on the fly, and we'll see where we end up with that. I hope the Devils immediately put both Lazar and Bastian on IR, and that should give us around $2 million or so. I got to see their cap hits, but combined, it's got to be around that $2 million mark, and that could be enough to bring in a fourth line center from somewhere if there's a sensible trade available. And I hope the Devils, look into that, because a lot of us are kind of questioning where that fourth line is going to be as of right now. With those guys out, we don't really have a solidified fourth line, and we're going to have to figure it out quick. It sucks that this happened so early in the season, but that's part of the game. And so Fitzgerald's got his work cut out for him. What will this new fourth line look like? And we're going to have to get some answers quickly. But overall, painful loss to the New Jersey Devils. They were in it till the very end. Very winnable game. They couldn't get it done. And here we are now, hoping to win in Edmonton and go home with 4 of the 6 points on the road trip is a tolerable result. Anything short of a win against Edmonton is a huge disappointment. Coming back to New Jersey, just kind of down on our luck at the moment. Down in the dumps feeling, really. Let's look at the game stats for a minute. Devils with 22 shots on goal. Calgary with 32. Despite Calgary having 32 shots, a lot of them were perimeter shots and kind of low-quality chances. They did have a few really good chances that Markstrom came up big on early, but the 32 shots is, I think, more of a product of them just trying to throw anything at net, to be honest. Some of them were just had no chance of going in, but it is what it is. That ultimately ended up in them winning with just ball throwing it on net and Coleman getting the tip, and I want to see the Devils do that more often. Devils 48.5% in the faceoff circle to the Flames 51.5%. Both teams scoreless on the power play. Devils go 0 for 3. You don't like to see that. In conjunction with Jack missing 2 breakaways, it's all just a recipe to lose an ugly one like we did tonight. Flames 0 for 4 on the power play, so credit to the Devils penalty kill for being perfect again tonight. Devils with 22 hits, Flames with 30 hits. Devils with 15 block shots, Flames with 18 block shots. Devils with 19 giveaways, that's too many. Flames with 14 giveaways. Devils with 5 takeaways. Flames with 5 takeaways as well. And overall, a painful loss in Calgary. The Devils deserted Markstrom. He deserved much better. He had another great start. And like I said, basically 115 minutes or so, 114 minutes of consecutive shutout hockey. Shutting out the Canucks and shutting out the Calgary Flames through 54-plus minutes. The offense wasn't there tonight. Markstrom deserved much better, and they all owe him an apology because it should have been a triumphant return to Calgary for Markey, and he should have left there with his head up high and feeling really good. And instead, he's probably like, damn, what more do I got to do to get a win out here? And I hope we really see Markstrom in net Monday night against Edmonton. I think if he doesn't start the next game, it'd be an absolute crime. I do not want to see Jake Allen start against the Oilers. It's got to be Markey. Reward him for 2 great games on the road and throw him right back out there. There shouldn't even be a discussion. Markstrom should be right back out there in the net for the Devils in the next game. And hopefully the offense shows up and this team could give Markstrom some support because he deserved much better. Let me know what you thought about this game in the comments. Let me know what you think about anything I said in this video. Anything, everything Devils hockey, throw it out there in the comments. I enjoy talking to all of you. This is a painful one. I am depressed, and hopefully they bounce back with a big one Monday night against the Oilers because tonight was just an absolute stinker, and Markstrom deserved much more. I'm sick for him. I really am. I really am sick for him, but I'll be back soon. Thank you for watching. I love you all. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, friends, let's go.